Okay, hello, it's Paul Green from the business community doing another one of our regular spotlight on interviews. So I'm pleased to say today I'm joined by Rob Harris. Good morning, Rob.
Good morning. Good to
So,
see you, Paul.
and good to see you, sir. So we're going to probe Rob a little bit and find out a little bit about what makes him tick and who he is. And then a little bit later, he's actually going to share some of his knowledge with us and do a little bit of a solo performance. So do you just to start off with, Rob, do you just want to introduce yourself and let the audience know who you are?
Yeah, indeed. Well, my name is Rob Harris, as you obviously know now, and I was for many, many years an independent financial advisor, specializing in wealth and investment particularly. Um, I came to the point where I thought I could retire. I sold my business, but my clients wouldn't let me. And they kept asking me questions, and those questions and the answers to them eventually became a money awareness course. So I turned into a financial educator, a financial coach and mentor, if you like. So that's what I'm doing now. So it's all about sharing my knowledge over the years with anybody who wants to listen to me, and for them to learn how to invest and get ahead and do it. So I'm glad to be here, Paul. Thank you.
So what would you say is the difference then between a financial educator and a financial advisor?
Hmm. Okay, well, if we look at regulatory matters for a minute quickly, the regulator would say that the financial advisor will tell you what to do. The financial educator, or rather the person giving guidance, which is what I suppose I'm really doing, they would say that I can give you guidance and information, and I can even suggest to you what you might want to do, but I can't tell you what to do. It's
Hmm.
a, it's a very narrow borderline, isn't it, really? But that's where it is. Yeah.
Okay. So tell us a little bit about your journey then. How did you end up in the finance world as a young
Oh,
man?
well, oh my goodness gracious me. Well, I'll tell you as quickly as I can, or briefly as I can. Um, I, um, I was in a situation where I did an apprenticeship within the print industry from the point when I left school. But it wasn't really the right place for me to be. But I was trapped in it for about 6 years. I became a qualified printer, if you like, and stayed in the industry for a while. But in the church that I used to go to was an admirable man whose name was Jim. Now, Jim always had a twinkle in his eye, and Paul, you won't be at all surprised to know he always wore a hat as well. Interestingly, as indeed I often do myself, of course. I'm often known for that. All right, so but Jim was an amazing man. In the Second World War, he trained our guys to fly behind enemy lines and parachute down behind enemy lines. And he would always be the first one out of the plane, and he used to tell me the stories about it. And having done that, he would then work his way back through enemy lines, back to the UK again, and do it all over again. So and I was fascinated by him and his character, and I kept nagging him, saying, "Jim, I want to come and work with you." And he was an insurance broker, so called, in those days. And he actually said to me, "Look, Rob," he said, "I tell you what, you keep on about this, so I'll give you 3 life assurance application forms. Go and see your friends and your mates, and if you can sign them up, I will have to take you on, won't I?"
Mm.
So within about 7 days, I came back with 3 application forms, all signed up for life assurance. So he had to take me on, didn't he? So that's
Excellent.
how I that's how I got into the business. And I bought myself way, way, way back. We're talking 1960 something now, for goodness sake. And there was no regulation of any sort in those days. And you could just become an insurance broker if you wanted to, and that was that.
Hmm.
But I bought myself a book from W.H. Smith. It was called Teach Yourself. I still got it somewhere. Teach Yourself Insurance,
Hmm.
and that's how I began to learn about
Right.
what I was selling. And I went cold calling. So
Yeah.
that's how I came into this. It's a long story from then on in,
Hmm.
but that was the very early kind of beginnings, Paul. Yeah, yeah.
Okay. And is it a better world now? It's quite heavily regulated, would you say?
Oh, that's an interesting question. I think in some ways, most certainly it is, and in other ways, it most certainly is not. Um, I mean, you have to have regulation, and but I do smile sometimes. Every time the regulators find somebody, I say to them, you failed. You
Mm,
know, regulation should have prevented the wrongdoing in the first place.
mm-hmm,
It's not a victory to fine somebody, it's a failure, actually, really. And I know nothing is perfect in this world, is it really, Paul? And it takes time to get things right. But
mm,
we do find at the moment, and this is a personal view, we do find at the moment that, that financial advisors are often strung up and can't actually do what they believe is the right thing to do,
mm-hmm,
because there's been financial conduct warnings about if you do this, we might say that, or what, and they come down the line, and advisors are worried about the impact of what they're doing now, whether they might be fined at some future point for actually doing it, and that sometimes leaves clients, people who want to invest, not in the best position,
mm-hmm,
or not getting maybe the very best advice. That's a controversial view I've just expressed, I'm sure, but
mm,
I think it's key, and it does mean that I've been dealing recently with people who have small amounts of money in their pension funds, but for various reasons they're not allowed to access those pension funds without getting financial advice.
mm-hmm,
That's very sensible in many ways, but if somebody's got a pot of £7,000 in a pension, no financial advisor can honestly afford to be involved with them
mm-hmm.
in giving. There's no money there to actually pay that to an advisor.
Yeah,
In
yeah,
one case recently was a lady who was told that she couldn't access a pension fund without financial advice, and
mm-hmm,
she was recommended to an advisor who wanted to charge her £720 plus VAT.
mm,
Just
mm,
and that's quite understandable because the advisor's got to cover all his costs.
yeah,
There's nothing wrong in what the advisor's doing with that, but what is wrong is all sort of backdrop of the fear and warnings of going against the regulator's advice to do what you think is the best thing, only
yeah,
to be fined later on. So
sure.
I've got every sympathy with advisors in this world. So regulation is a good thing, Paul, but
Okay.
it also causes problems as well.
Has its limitations, yeah. So,
I think
how,
that's limitations.
how does somebody go and choose a financial advisor then? There's probably quite a lot of choice out there. So,
Oh, golly gosh, all right. Well, yeah, I mean, if you'd like, I will take a couple of minutes, 2 or 3 minutes, but if you
yeah,
like, I'll run through that. Would you? Is that helpful?
yeah, that's fine.
Um, I think, again, you might find some of my views are controversial, but you see, I've been in this industry for best part of half a century, 50 years. So I do feel as though I know the industry from the inside out, if you see what I
Mhm.
mean.
Yeah.
So maybe I'm aware of things that outside of the industry you wouldn't be, as a client, as somebody seeking advice, you wouldn't necessarily be aware. So there are many kinds of different types of different levels of financial advisor. And can I just counsel you, if I may, if you're prepared for me to do that, just
Mm-hmm,
to say, please don't choose your financial advisor just because you like her or
mm-hmm,
just because you like him. All
mm-hmm,
right. Okay. It's important that you have a chemistry with the person you're going to work with. With an important thing, like looking after your wealth and your pension. It's really, really important that you do that you bond with them and relate with them. But you really must ask some really deep questions. You know, in the world of business networking, we often talk about getting to know somebody,
mm-hmm,
getting to like them, and then feeling, if you like, that we trust them
mm-hmm.
because other people do. But my dear friends, we need to go deeper than that. It doesn't matter whether we're choosing somebody for social media or marketing or financial or whatever it is. We need to go deeper than just feeling that we know and we like and we trust. There needs to be a bit of forensic science behind the question. So the kind of questions that I would, with the knowledge I have, that I would want to ask a financial advisor before I employed them was, are you truly an independent financial advisor?
Mm-hmm.
And by that I mean, are you directly regulated with the Financial Conduct Authority?
Mm-hmm.
Or are you regulated through a company midway between you and the regulator, a kind of an umbrella company? So
Yeah.
that may not be a bad thing. It might be quite a good thing, but again, it could, in my view, that could limit the kind of advice that the advisor could give you. I mean, let's take it. I sometimes say to people, ask your advisor whether if he felt the financial conditions were such that it was right for all your money to come out of investments and sit in cash for the meantime, would he do it?
Mm.
And I have a suspicion there are very few advisors that would be as definite about that. And because the principle is, oh, you should always diversify your money across different kinds of investments. So some investments will go down, some will go up, and you'll sort of be all right in the end. And that's sensible for a lot of people to some extent. But it's like the Grand Old Duke of York, isn't it? Grand Old Duke of York, he marched his men up the top of the hill, then he marched them down again. When they're up, they're up. When they're down, and when they're only halfway up, which is where you are with this diversification principle, you're neither up nor down.
Good analogy.
You might become, yeah. I mean, you might be comfortable with that, but on the other hand, you might think, gosh, I want to do a bit better than just the average. And so you need to find out whether your financial advisor you're choosing is out of the box. Is he or she rigid in the regulatory framework so rigidly that they won't look out of the box and do what a lot of us can see could be sensible advice, actually, really. But if you're doing that, then the risk is greater, obviously, because you're taking conviction about where markets are going. So I'm rambling on a bit, so maybe I'll stop there. But
that's fine. Yeah. I guess what you're saying is you're looking for sort of a proactive person that actually is going to shift your money, given the market conditions, to potentially make a better return rather than leave it in a range of funds or particular funds, but given the time might go down in value. So you're looking for someone rather than just to pick a portfolio and just sort of check in with you once a year and report how it's doing. It would be great if they responded to the market conditions, I guess.
That's right. And it's the market conditions ahead. One of the things I often say in my course is the number 2, figure 2 crops up in the course quite a lot. And one of the figure 2s is to say, always look 2 steps ahead of the market. So, if I may, I'll just jump in there because it may be interesting to some people. I'm aware now of the very strong likelihood of a sudden spike in inflation in 2021. And there are reasons for that. I won't go into the reasons because it'll take us too long, Paul, actually. But there are reasons for that. So I would hope that your financial advisor would be aware of that and therefore would be taking some steps maybe to tilt or to shape your portfolio to take care of that inflationary possibility, to take advantage of it. For example, one of the forms of investment you can make is to lend your money through what are called government gilts, lending your money to the British government or the UK. But you may or may not know that when you do that, your fund manager can be running a fund where he's lending the money, but only on the basis that the interest rate he's going to get on your lending of your money is linked to the rate of inflation. So there we get an inflation-linked rate of yield or income. Now, if there's a sudden spike in inflation, could it be that everybody will suddenly want to protect their money from inflation? Everybody wants inflation-linked bonds and gilts. So if your financial advisor is helping you to make that decision for him to move some of your money into that category, it might just be the right thing to do, mightn't it?
Yeah, potentially.
Because another number 2 in the world of investment, Paul, is always look for 2 rates of return on every pound that you invest. One is the capital growth. You put £1,000 in, when you take it out, you want it to be 2,000, not still 1,000. And meanwhile, you want an income, a dividend, a yield to actually come in. Right? And if that yield is index linked and there is a spike in inflation, that's the reason why people might suddenly want to buy the kind of investment you bought today. Because the capital value, the capital growth of your investment will suddenly rocket upwards because the market works by 2 things again, supply and demand. Now, that's not please do understand, this is just me helping you, I hope, as a listener, to think and to open your mind to possibilities.
Yeah,
I'm not saying go and buy these things.
of course.
It would be because you need to understand the risks and rewards and all the ifs and buts and maybes about them before you do that. But I'm
Absolutely.
just trying to show you how you need to be working with financial advisors who are forward looking like
Mm,
that
mhm.
and who are aware of market conditions.
Yeah.
Because I'll stop in a minute, Paul, but it's all about risk.
Mm,
What kind of risk level are you as a client? And I think a fundamental mistake is made because the textbook about financial advice and indeed regulators and many advisors will decide that certain kinds of assets or investments are high risk
mhm,
and others are low risk.
mhm,
And I shake my head, controversially maybe, but
mhm,
I shake my head with all my 50 years of background. I shake my head, no, the risk of any investment is not what the textbook may tell you. The risk of any investment it depends upon the economic conditions
mhm,
and the political conditions around the investment at the time that you hold it.
mhm.
So you see, you need a financial advisor who is market aware
Yeah, yeah.
and
It's a
not somebody who's just using a textbook response,
yeah, it's a fluid situation, isn't it? All the while.
especially now. And great
Yeah.
opportunities at the moment, great opportunities in the market actually.
Okay.
Because of the volatility. Excuse my enthusiasm, won't you? But
That's all right. You're allowed to be enthusiastic, Rob. No problem. So,
yeah,
your money
yeah,
awareness course, you touched on that earlier.
yes,
So, tell me what that's about and who it's aimed at and what
right,
people will get from being involved in that.
yes, okay. Um, what I find really is that, well, I'll explain a minute. When I was a financial advisor, I'd be up here somewhere talking to my clients who were here, and all my knowledge and they were saying, "Yes, Rob, of course, Rob. Yes, that's fine, Rob. We'll do that, Rob." And I never probably really understood. They didn't really understand.
Mhm.
It was only when I stopped being and became a financial educator, and I began asking my clients questions to find out what they did understand, that I discovered that most of what I may say, and in fact, someone said the other day, I've got a stockbroker, we have meetings with them, I never understand a word he says. And that was said to me 2 or 3 days back.
Mm,
As simple as that. And I think that's common in the place. So, well, what the money awareness course does is it explains things in a very simple way, so that you can understand the basics of how it works. And it's not that complicated, Paul.
mm,
I mean, to be quite real, when it comes down to good basics, I will often say to people, what makes the price of shares go down? And they scratch their heads. I say, it's quite simple. It's because people sell them.
mm,
Well, I say, oh, well, because people buy them. I think, oh, okay. So this is all about what people do then.
mm,
So if you've got a good understanding of people, you could well be a good investor.
mm,
You see the point?
mm.
Okay, so I really can. And the other quick thing is, you'll recognise that most of my listeners here and you, Paul, we've been to the street market, haven't we?
Mhm.
And in the street market, there's loads of stalls and people behind the stalls trying to sell us the things they've got on the stalls.
Mm.
The stock market is very similar. The second word is market, isn't it?
Yep.
Stock market. Okay, so it's a marketplace with all sorts of different kinds of investments that you can invest your money into. Yeah, you with me?
Mhm.
So it's a question of understanding what those investments are and how those investments will respond to different economic and political circumstances. And so the course really does give you a good handle on on how to think your way through. But I dub myself as your financial friend, as you'll see from the ticker tape on the bottom. That's
Mm.
because at the end of the course, I don't stop there, unless you want me to. I continue to be your financial friend.
Mm.
So as you make your decision, they are your decisions. As you're making your decisions as to what kind of assets you want to, what kind of strategy you want to adopt, I'm there alongside you, and you can use me as a sounding board. And so
Mm.
I'm guiding and helping and giving you information, but you are making decisions. So you do stand or fall by
Yeah.
your own decision.
Absolutely, absolutely. So why do you do what you do then, Rob? What gets you out of bed in the morning and
Oh my goodness gracious me.
keeps you enthused
Um,
in what you do?
oh my goodness gracious me, Paul. The question why is the big question we ought to ask about life and everything else. Why? Why are you here? Why am I here? So if I talk about why I do what I do, that's just one little piece of the jigsaw. Um, and to understand why I do what I do, you'd have to understand more about the rest of my life, really, to get the proper picture. Right, okay. So I suppose you could, one way of looking at it is this. When I look out, I go to a business networking meeting, like one of your grand meetings, Paul, when we could go, that is. You know,
Mhm,
look out over the heads of the people. And I know that some of them are pretty knowledgeable about investments. That's good. But the bulk of people actually know very little. Um, so they're in the stage of greyness about investment and money and how to handle it and what to do with it. Or they're just dependent upon a financial advisor and they don't really understand where their money is or what it's doing.
mhm,
And for some people, they're completely in the dark. There's no light about the subject, and actually they almost turn their backs on it. And people who are in the grey area or the black area, if you like, the darkness area, are just missing out hugely. And we are living in a world now where, um, because of the economic conditions we're facing now, my goodness me, it's not going to be easy. The next couple of years, 3 years, are not going to be easy. And you and I, and that means you too, Paul. We all need to make the most of every pound we've got. We really do.
sure. Yeah.
And that actually means you've got to move money out of banks and building societies and into proper investment. To do
Mm,
that, you've got to understand what you're doing and weigh up whether it's what you want to do. And
mm.
that's what I'm about. So that's why I do. So as you might say, I'm putting the light on for people.
Okay.
And so many people have said to me, Rob, I didn't know I could do that.
Mm,
There's one of my youngest students, because they're not clients, they are students because they're learning from me. One of my youngest students, I was quite delighted the other day. Well, she might be about a 20-year-old, I think. I'm not quite sure, might be a bit older. Um, she came on a course with me. We had a group of people doing the course together. And the consequence was she decided to pluck up her courage and invest £100 per month
mhm.
into the stock market via the FTSE 100 index tracking it. You know? And she only put the money in October of this year. And 4 months later, she had put £400 in.
Mhm.
But the £400 had grown to very nearly £450.
Mm.
Now, that money would have been in the bank otherwise. It would
Sure.
have taken years and years and years for the money in the bank to have made that £50 profit for her. And she then went and told her younger friends around her,
Mm.
and they just don't believe her. They
Mm.
said, we just don't believe it. And I said,
Yeah.
well, have you? I said, have you spoken to your parents? Oh, my parents would never. My parents would never ever do this.
Mm.
So an awful lot of us are our money, our financial thinking, and what we do with our money often can be traced back to our parents' attitude.
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
shake it up and shake out. That might not be good.
I guess it's that old thing of still keeping your money under the mattress, isn't it?
Oh, very much so.
If
Yes.
you can see it and touch it, you know it's there. Whereas if you
Yeah.
invest, it sort
Yeah.
of goes into the ether a little bit, doesn't it?
Yes,
Uh,
it does.
and
It
it
does.
all comes digital and numbers and things. So I can totally understand that fear. I guess same with banks, isn't it? You feel your money is safe in a bank, and potentially it is, but we all know in certain places, banks have gone down before, so it's not as safe
Yeah.
as maybe people have thought historically. So what would you say has been your biggest challenge to date? I know that for most, as we're recording this, I think in lockdown 3.0, I guess. So that has been a challenge for most. Outside of that, Rob, what do you think has been your biggest challenge as a business owner?
I think it's the biggest challenge is people's attitudes, I think. And it's very difficult, isn't it, to help people to move from one attitude to another. So the challenge isn't competition in the wider marketplace. because it's very hard to find another financial educator. So I don't know whether there is one at the moment, really. But so the problem is people's attitudes. I have to be very gentle and careful at how I approach that. But, I can look out over a room full of people and know that if I can get my message across to them, their financial well-being will grow and be substantial. The difference that handling your money profitably and sensibly and prudently and knowledgeably can make is absolutely huge. And what's more, Paul, in a world where we know there's so many people struggling and suffering, wouldn't it just be great if we could take our money from the building society or bank earning nothing, make some profit, make some surplus profit, and have that surplus to share with the world of people who are suffering from lack of food and all the other things. So money itself isn't really our wealth. We need to say what is our wealth, and I was talking to you might know him, for chatting with a nice guy called Kevin Robinson the other
Yes.
day,
Yeah.
and we asked the question, "What is our wealth? What is our wealth?" And he told a story of how one day he heard a joke. He was out working and he was dying to share that joke with his daughter. And his wealth was getting home, sharing the joke with her and laughing and whatever. So our wealth may be very different from money, but we do need money in the background um, to allow us to, I would say, we often are known in life by what we do rather than who we are. And I think one of the struggles and one of the big benefits of having money and having the pressure of, can we pay the bills every month, to knowing that you've got investments that are doing well, and you're more relaxed, you can become yourself. So you can begin to be who you are rather than just be doing all the time,
Yeah.
really. Yeah. So an interesting question for people out there really is, what is your wealth? Yeah, because it surely is not. Money doesn't buy happiness. It doesn't. It's very essential, and it's so important that we do get it right. But so what's the wealth in your life really? I won't ask you that, Paul, because I'll be turning the tables on me if I ask you the question. You wouldn't want me to do that, would you?
Not
But,
today.
but I think,
Not
but
today.
Paul,
You can
Paul,
interview me at any
yeah.
time.
Yeah, plus I think I should just say, because I said that what I do is like just one piece of the jigsaw puzzle of my life, really, actually. And I talked about, and you would know I would say this, Paul, wouldn't you? Um, I've talked about people being in a grey area or even in darkness when it comes to money. And I think, very often we are so focused on the natural things in life that we're engaged. Earning our money and paying our bills is essential. And all the issues of life that we face, we often forget the spiritual part of our makeup. And so, I would add that. So one of my purposes of why do I do what I do? Well, it's because, I can share the light that I have, that I've experienced through my own faith. My faith is the Christian faith. That's partly how I grew up, and it's partly because that's what I've found to be true, and that's where I find the light. So, in many ways, I think through all of us in business, self-employed, small business, we can all share the light that we have. We can all be encouraging for other people, to other people. We can lift them up when they're down. So one of the reasons I get out of bed in the morning is because I've got enough life experience now to maybe have a certain degree of wisdom and understanding. I hope anyway. Um, and if I can share that, and other people can not only have the financial burden lifted off them through the money awareness course, but they can often have aspects of life in general lifted off their shoulders, so that
I
we
think
well, yeah.
that's
So that's.
particularly important right now, I think, isn't it?
I really do. If I can just quickly add as well,
Yes.
I don't, anybody listening who'd like to do this, please come and contact me. I'm about to launch some Zoom sessions built around the big questions of life, and I'm calling it the Big Questions Forum. And you're going to be invited to come into that forum with whatever faith, belief, non-faith, atheist, Christian, or whatever, Buddhist, whatever you may happen to be. Somebody who believes in the universe, I don't mind. Come and share your beliefs. Come and debate and discuss, and let's see what light we can actually find together. So please do, if that interests you, the big questions of life, the things that really matter, do come and ask me about that, as well as, if you like, the money awareness course, by all means.
Okay, yeah. Sounds very interesting, Rob. Thank you for that. So,
You're welcome.
kindly agreed to share some of your vast knowledge for 3 or 4 minutes. So
Okay.
I'm going to hand over the screen to you now,
All right.
and just leave you to your own devices, so you
All
can just
right.
impart a little bit more wisdom. So, here we go.
Okay.
There you go.
All right. Fine. Okay. Well, thanks for the opportunity, and thanks for listening to me as well. Just 3 or 4 minutes, and that's all. But what I feel I'd like to do is reach out to those people who don't really know very much about investment, and maybe your money is still in the bank or in the building society, or maybe it is invested, but you don't really understand where your money is or what it's doing actually. So I want to go back to that picture I began to paint. We've all been to a local street market, haven't we? And the stall holders are all trying to sell tomatoes or whatever it is they've got on their tabletop to us. Well, the stock market is somewhat like that, except that the things that are on the market stall tables are just different kinds of investments. So just very briefly, I want to share with you a little picture that might help you to begin to work your way through this. Let's make the stock market really quite simple for a minute. I don't know if you happen to have a pen, a piece of paper, you could just draw a vertical line and then a line across. So you've got 4 boxes. Yep. And in the top left-hand box, if you wrote the word cash, or we could say near cash, that's an investment. Holding cash on deposit is a savings, or it's a form of investment in a way. We'll talk about that in a minute. In the second box below that, I'd like you to write the words fixed interest. Fixed interest, because that's the second category of investment you can buy through the actual stock market. In the box at the top right-hand corner, you could write the word property. You may not know that you can buy property through the stock market without actually having to buy a property yourself. Could be much simpler, couldn't it? And the box underneath that, we'll just put the word equities or shares in there, really. Let me just cover this 4 boxes, because once you've got a handle of those 4 things, you'll at least have the basics, the basic introduction to begin to look at the stock market and to begin to look at different forms of investment other than just the bank and so forth. Oh, and by the way, did you know that you can invest in the stock market from as little as £50 per month? Right, so the young lady I mentioned put £400 in over 4 months, £100 a month, and it had grown to nearly 450. Let's be careful. Stock markets investments can go down as well as up. Yeah, you can lose money. I've never known anybody related to me ever lose all their money. Never known anybody lose anything like all their money in the stock market. And very often we read the small print and it warns us, and it says quite rightly, it says you may not get back as much as you put in, and so on. But that small print isn't entirely truthful. It only tells us about one side of the coin, which is the negative side. Flip it over from tails to heads, and you find the good news that the reason the stock market is there is, for one reason, is because you can make a lot of money through it, and most people do come and join them. So what about cash, very quickly? Well, cash, the problem with putting your money on deposit is that when you come to spend the money you've saved, it won't buy as much in the shops as if you spent it on the first day. That's because the cost of living rises, as you know, and the interest you get doesn't grow in line with that. Fixed interest, very quickly, that's where you are led to. There are only 2 fundamental ways of investing your money through the stock market. One is by lending your money to governments or to businesses, which is what we call the fixed interest market. And the other thing is you can buy ownership of companies by investing in funds, whether your fund manager is buying shares, of different companies like BT and Shell and some of the big banks and so on. So you're either lending money through the fixed interest market, or you're buying ownership through shares. The other box that we had there was the box of property, wasn't there? There, your fund manager that you're investing through is buying commercial property. So that's shops, retail, and office blocks, and also industrial units and so on as well. And then you get two kinds of return there, don't you? Because your manager's buying shops and bricks and mortar, commercial property and office blocks. That's bricks and mortar that we hope will rise in value. Meantime, there's a rental income coming in. And from all of these investments, except cash, you can learn how to get two kinds of return from every penny that you invest. I need to stop there for the sake of time, but I hope those four boxes is some very basic, elementary introduction. Cash, and lending your money, and then buying ownership of companies or investing in property. And those are the four main areas of the stock market. But do come back in contact with me if you'd like to know why. I just love to share my understanding and knowledge, and I'd like to see you then benefit from that and move ahead and do new things with your money. Thanks for listening.
Okay, thanks for that, Rob. I have to endorse your money awareness course. I attended it. It was an eye opener for me. And as a result of that, my investments almost immediately from meeting up with Tom, who you work with, by just shifting where a certain pension pot was, I think sort of like saved me money and earned money at the same time. Had I left it in one pot, I think it would have gone down by about £5,000. But we shifted it, and it went up by about £3,000 or £4,000 or whatever it might have been at the time.
Exactly right. But I do clearly recall that. Yes.
Yes.
So knowledge is a powerful thing, Paul. When you've got a financial friend alongside you, it's even better.
No, absolutely. I highly recommend people getting in touch with Rob and just having an initial chat with him. I think you'll learn something from that, even if you don't go ahead and do his money awareness course. And I think for me now, I'm certainly more aware of where my money is and what it's doing and the different places that it's actually put in, rather with most people, I guess, or certainly people I know, will just sort of leave it with whoever their financial advisor is, not really know the terms, not really understand what these different pots are, and therefore be none the wiser, and just sort of have an annual review, and it's either gone up or gone down. They just sort of take that on the chin. Whereas you can be a little bit smarter through knowing Rob, I would say. So one final thing, if you were to give one top tip for any business owner out there, what would your top tip be?
Okay. Yes, I think the top tip would be a fairly simple one. I could give several, but the one I think I'll give is this. I've learned that I'm good at certain things, Paul, and utterly hopeless at other things. Okay. So I've learned from quite an early stage in my business life to download the things that I don't enjoy, to download the things I'm not good at. Find other people to do your social media if you're not happy. I had a lovely invitation the other day for a course to learn about marketing. And I gently wrote back and said, thank you so much for your kind invitation. But actually, I'm somebody who wants that done for me. I don't want to learn how to do it and take up hours of my time. Because, I can be more benefit to other people face to face like I am today with you, perhaps, sharing my knowledge. And that's how I earn my income as well. So it's much better that I'm on the coalface, as it were, and not in the admin works of my business. So please, and that's good for business too, because that means that you're going to do more business and earn more income by doing what you're good at. And other people's business will flourish as well in these difficult times because you're downloading things to them that they can do for you, for which you're paying them out of the extra income you're earning because you're doing what you ought to be doing. You're on the coalface. Yeah. Does that help, Paul? Oh, I think we've frozen.
No, you're all right. You're okay. I'm okay. You're back. That's fine.
I'm back. So
you're back.
did you capture?
No, absolute sound advice. absolutely standard. But the classic is, I guess, initially the bookkeeping or the accountancy that people do themselves, and other administrative things. So yeah, once you've released that, because what you're really downloading is the service, but you're also gaining back the time, aren't you? Which is an investment in itself. You've got to invest time to make a business successful. So that's it. So that's it, Rob. Your ordeal is done now. So thank you very
Thank you. Yeah.
Thank you very much for imparting your knowledge. So yeah, thanks again. I'll end the broadcast there.
Thank you so much. Bless you now. Take care. Bye-bye.